Hello guys, it's already 12 a.m. in the morning, and before going to bed I want to share you guys this amazing way to remember the neuronal pathway for vision. And the word is optic pathway, and I'm gonna talk something about the optic nerve. Optic nerve, which is also known as the cranial nerve second. Its functional component is written as SSA, or spatial somatic afferent. Why spatial? Because it carries the visual pathway. And why afferent? Because it carries this pathway to the brain. So that's why spatial somatic afferent. We're going to talk about the optic nerve pathway, how it takes the visual impulses from the eye to the brain. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. As you know, as in my previous videos, I always use some kind of tricks or visual mnemonics to make things easier, and I'm gonna do the same in this video as well. So to make it easier to remember the optic pathway, I'm gonna make a facial structure over here. Okay, something that will look like a face. Okay, let's start from eyebrow. So these are the eyebrows I'm drawing here, and here I have two eyeballs. Let's consider these as eyeballs, and then some weird looking nose. Okay, so this is the nose, and then we have mouth, which is not less weird than the nose itself. Okay, so this is the mouth, and then down here we have got chin. Okay, so let's make it like this. So this is a face, something that looks like a face. Okay, now coming towards the eyebrow. Okay, eyebrows represent the visual fields. Okay, visual fields means the fields that can be seen by our eyes. Okay, so coming to the left eye, this is the visual field of the left eye. Yeah, so our left eye can receive visions from here to here. Okay, now we're gonna divide this visual field into two halves. Okay, you see this half, as since it's very near to the nose, this we write this as nasal half, or the nasal visual field. This part, it is closer to the temporal lobe or the temple, so we'll call this as temporal half or the temporal visual field. Same with the right eye, so this is the nasal and this is the temporal. Alright, so this is the temporal half, this is the nasal half of the visual field. Now coming to the eye, I'll draw retinas here. Now same thing with the eye. Okay, so you see these retinas, since they are closer to the nose, these two retinas, they are closer to the nose, so these are the nasal part of the retina. Yeah, and these are the temporal part. This is also temporal. Okay, now what's funny over here is that the visual field from the temporal half, okay, so this visual field from the temporal half is perceived by the retina on the nasal half. Okay, so this visual field is perceived by the nasal half of the retina, and nasal half of the visual field is perceived by the temporal half of the retina. So they are forming a crossover here. Same with the right eye also. The nasal visual field is received by the temporal half, and the temporal visual field is received by the nasal half of the retina. Okay, so these are the retina. Okay, now from the retina arises the second cranial nerve, which is the optic nerve. So like this. So this is the optic nerve. Yeah, it arises from the eye like this. So this is the optic nerve, this part. Yeah. Now the fibers coming from the nasal half, okay, so these are the fibers coming from the nasal half. These fibers, they will come over here up to the nose and they will cross like this. So this is the fiber from the nasal half, it will cross like that, okay. Whereas the fibers from the temporal half, these fibers, they won't be crossing, but they will be moving to the same side, okay, like that, like this. The fibers from the nasal half will move to the contralateral side, and fibers from the temporal half will move to the ipsilateral side, like this, okay. And as you can see here, we can appreciate some groupings of these nerves, okay. And this grouping, or the contact point, this is known as optic chiasma, okay. So this is optic chiasma over here. And then these nerve fibers coming out of the optic chiasma, now they are no longer called as optic nerve, they are called as optic tract, okay. So first optic nerve, which arises from the eyeball, then they come here, the nasal half fuses, whereas the temporal half, not fuses, but they cross to the contralateral side, whereas the temporal half fibers, they move to the ipsilateral side, they form optic chiasma, and from the optic chiasma arises the optic tract. This optic tract fibers, they move over here. You see this round body, this is the lateral geniculate body. Lateral geniculate body is one of the nucleus present in the thalamus of the brain. So this is the lateral geniculate body. It's there's nothing special in here, it's just a relay center. Why? Because it relays information from this optic tract like that. So there is a formation of synapse over here. So these fibers coming from the eyeball, the optic nerve, they forming the optic chiasma, and then through the optic tract this synapse over the lateral geniculate nucleus, like here, and then new nerves arises from the lateral geniculate body, and these nerves, they move to the chin like this, okay. So this chin over here, this is the calcarine cortex, okay. So this is the actual visual area of our brain, the calcarine cortex, because it lies near the calcarine sulcus. So this is how the visual impulses travel from the eye to the brain, okay. So first here we have the temporal visual field, the nasal visual field. The impulses from the nasal visual field are received by the temporal retina, and the impulses from the temporal visual field are received by the nasal retina, okay. The fibers which arises from the nasal retina, they move to the contralateral side, whereas the fibers from the temporal retina, they move to the ipsilateral side, forming optic chiasma, and from the optic chiasma arises the optic tract. Optic tract moves to the lateral geniculate body, and it synapses with these nerves, and these nerves that arises from the optic that arises from the lateral geniculate body, these are called as optic radiation. So these fibers are called optic radiation, or as they travel from geniculate body to the calcarine cortex, they are also called as geniculo-calcarine tract, okay. Geniculo-calcarine tract. One thing I forgot to mention here is that you see these nerves arising from the lateral geniculate body. One of these nerves which came from the temporal half of the retina, one of this nerve will form a loop around the temporal horn of the lateral ventricle. Okay, so this nerve will make a loop around the temporal area. So this nerve is known as the temporal loop. Okay, so these nerves from the temporal loop are also called as Meyer's loop. Okay, and this nerve coming from the nasal half of the retina, this is called as Barham's loop. Okay, so this much for the neuronal pathway for vision. I'll make a separate video on the lesions of this pathway. Thank you.